This is kind of a cool dream. It's one of those dreams that you really don't want to wake up from. Have you ever had a dream like that, where it was so cool you didn't want to wake up, but you kind of had to because you had to go to the bathroom, and then you lay back down, try to get in the same position you were in before, and try to go back to sleep to finish the dream, or go back to it, and you can't? It's frustrating. Very frustrating. Well, I had one of those. I dreamed that I was walking through my house, went to the kitchen sink, and was washing my hands, looking out the window, and I noticed my pickup was gone. It had been moved. It wasn't out front where I usually kept it. Instead, it was parked over in front of the garage, and I'm the only one with the key. So I look out the window to try to figure out who moved my pickup, and I see a white pickup, an older white pickup, in front of it, and a man standing outside right inside the door area of the garage. And I look at him through the window, and then I realize he's talking to my dad. Well, my dad had been passed away. He had been dead for, I don't know, 6 or 7 years at that point. And I thought, my God, my dad's here. He's got a friend, and they're out there hanging out in the garage talking. So I ran outside, run up to the door, stood there, obviously just flabbergasted, looking at the guy talking to my dad. And I remember my dad saying, "I'm sorry I can't help you this time. Go on up to Travelstead's. They'll have the part. Tell them Jack sent you. And maybe I'll catch you next time." But he said, "I just don't have that part." And see, Dad used to work on lawnmowers, and people would come to him for repairing push mowers, riding mowers, or to see if he had a certain part, a carburetor or a choke or a pull string or something, a deck. So they'd come and see if he had any salvage parts that they needed. So obviously, Dad didn't have the part, and he sent the guy downtown Denton to Travelstead's. So I'm standing there, and I'm hearing this. And the guy looks over at me and smiles and nods his head, being friendly and acknowledging me. Then he tells tells Dad, he said, "Jack, I'll talk to you later, thanks." Gets in his pickup and he leaves. I run up to my dad. I give him a hug. And I give him a big kiss. And I said, "Daddy, I'm so glad to see you. Daddy, I miss you so much. I love you." And he said, "Well, I love you too." I said, "But you know you're dead, right?" And he said, "Yeah, I know." And he kind of dipped his head down one way and another, looking around, and he said, "Yeah, I know." He said, "But I just wanted," he put his hands up on his hips as he did that with his head. And he said, "But I just wanted to come and tinker in the garage a little bit and check on everything and make sure everything's all right." I said, "Dad, everything's fine. You're always welcome to come. We've talked about this. I'm just so glad to see you." And then my bladder woke me up. I had to get up and pee. And I tried not to, to get a drink, which usually when I get up to go to the bathroom, I get something to drink before I lay back down. I may even open the door to see if the dogs want out. But this time I went straight to the bathroom, went straight back to bed, tried to keep my eyes closed as much as possible, tried to, not wake up any more than I had to so I could go back to sleep and finish that dream. Be back in that dream with my dad. But I couldn't. And I've tried since then. I've visualized that dream. I've thought about it right before I go to bed, hoping somehow I can connect back there again and go, but it hasn't happened. I'm thinking that was my dad. I don't think it was just a dream. I think my dad visited me while I was susceptible to seeing him. Because when you're in a dream state, you're on an astral plane, and that's like a spiritual realm, and you're easily vulnerable to visits or interference from positive and negative entities. That particular time, that moment in time, my dad decided he would take the opportunity to come visit. And what's so strange, I've thought about this dream time and time again over the years. I don't know who the man was, but he kind of looked familiar that my dad was talking to. So it was probably someone that had been out there before that I'd seen out there. And, that's why he looked familiar, but I didn't know who he was. And with my dad's telling him to go down and go to travel sheds, and they would tell the guy what you need, tell him Jack sent you. He'd understand it was a part for a mower. And I remember years before my dad died, I would ride around with him back when I was in college. And he would go to travel sheds to go pick up a part. So I remember where it was. It was downtown Denton, or right off the square. I don't know if it's still open. I have no idea. But it was some kind of a parts store. It wasn't like O'Reilly's or AutoZone or any of that. This was like a small engine type auto or parts store. I don't know what all they had, but I know he got a lot of his lawnmower parts from there. And parts, like to fix sump pumps and things like that around the farm. And so everything in that dream seems so real and so plausible that I don't doubt any of it. And the fact that I recognized that I was in a dream, and I talked to him, asking him, you're dead, right? That was a lucid dream. Back in the mid to late 90s, I remember listening to Art Bell, and there was some guy that he had on there. I'm sure there's some of my subscribers can name the guy, because he was quite famous in the field of parapsychology, and he was on Art's show a lot, but I don't remember the guy's name. He had some kind of a school or teaching type thing where he would teach people to astral travel and remote view and that kind of a thing. And, I don't know where the school was. I don't know how much it was. None of that. Because I've done all of that stuff. And I didn't have anybody teach me. I just did it normally. I mean, it come natural for me. But I remember he had this guy one time on the show. And they were talking about something. And he had been on there a lot. He had talked, interviewed on Art Bell's show quite a bit. In this one particular time, they were talking about remote viewing and astral traveling and lucid dreaming, those kinds of things, and hell, I'd done all that. So I didn't know what it was called, but been there, done that. When they started describing certain situations, I was like, well, yeah. I thought a lot of people did that. I thought that was common. It's not, come to find out. But anyway, they were talking about lucid dreaming, this one particular segment of a show. And so I thought, I've never called in before, but I wonder if I can get through. And I'd be damned. I called the number and he said, east of the Rockies, you're live with Art Bell. And I just thought, my God, I'm actually on air. I'm talking to Art. I can't believe I got through. And I said, well, I've had this particular thing before. And he said, well, that's lucid dreaming. If you know you're dreaming during the dream, that's lucid dreaming. And he said, next time you're flying, you can actually stop between buildings and pick up the building because you know you can do it. If you know you can do something in the astral plane while you're lucid dreaming, the physical realm doesn't stop you. You have no limitations. So they said, stop next time you're flying and you realize that this is a dream. Stop and try to pick up a building and see. Well, I told them I can't really remember flying much, and they said that's usually what people remember is flying. Well, if I flew, it must have been a long time ago, and I forgot those dreams. Flying is not one of those things that I normally do. But then I knew what it was called. It was called lucid dreaming. If you're in a dream and you recognize it for what it is, that you're actually in a dream state, and this isn't real, you can do anything. The physical limitations that we have when we're awake, it doesn't apply when you're in the astral phase or state, in a dream state. I thought that was kind of cool. So I've tried to go back there. I've tried to see my dad again. He hasn't come. He hasn't visited. Hopefully he will again. Don't know. But he and I did talk. We talked at length about, over the years, about me, exploring and investigating ghosts and chasing ghost stories and sensing and feeling and seeing and hearing certain things. And I told him if it's possible to come back. So he knows that I wouldn't be freaked out or scared. He knows that I wanted him and invited him to come. So since that is out of the way, he didn't have to worry about freaking me out or scaring me. And it's obvious he's been there several times. Hell, the hours after we buried him, he wished me Merry Christmas by putting apples and oranges in front of his chair. And if you've not heard that story, scroll down to where the video says Ghosts of Christmas Past and click on it and watch the video. That happened hours after his funeral. So obviously he's visited, is what I'm saying. And so obviously it's possible. There's a few other times that he no doubt has been there and scared people away, freaked people out. I think it's funny because I warned him, and I said, if you have good in your heart and you're cool, Dad's not going to bother you. I mean, he might be around, that might freak you out a little bit, but you don't have anything to worry about because he'd be cool with you. Because he's an old World War II vet, and he had a sense of humor, but he's also could be mean as hell if you crossed him. So as long as you're not planning anything wrong, he's not going to have a problem with you. Well, the two people he scared, one of them may have had ill intent, but the other one didn't, but still was spooked and freaked out and left. I'll tell those stories some other time, but Dad's been there. He's been there in my dream. I wished you would come back. Have y'all had anybody come and visit you and you knew when you saw them they were dead? And did you speak to them about being dead? He acknowledged it. My dad acknowledged, yeah, he goes, yeah, I know. Whenever I told him, or I said, Dad, you know you're dead, right? He knew he was dead. He came back to visit anyway. Somehow still was helping a friend of his with the part, locate a part, and I got my hug and kiss from Daddy. You don't get better than that after they passed. You just don't. I just wish he'd come back. Well, thanks for listening. If you've got stories like this, I want to hear them. Send them to me. You don't have to use your name. I'm totally cool with that. Just send me the stories. And I'll make it into a video. Thanks for listening. Bye.